Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. For me, it is a good morning. I'd like to welcome you back to the channel. I hope you're all doing fantastic. If you clicked on this video, you're obviously interested in Cisco's Catalyst SD-WAN. Now, this video is part of a larger SD-WAN series, which if you are new to Cisco's solution, I would encourage you to watch it from the beginning. Today, we're going to focus once again on device templates and feature templates. But in this use case, I'm going to demonstrate how to configure a TLOC extension inside of the dual router facility or site. So with all that being said, let me share my screen and we'll jump right in. So again, if you're watching this from the beginning, this topology should not look new. It's the one that we're working through the series. But today we're going to be we're drilling into DC1. So over here on the right-hand side, we have a Cisco Edge device that is connected to the biz internet, and we have another Cisco Edge device that has a connection to the MPLS. Now, this brings up the age-old issue where if a circuit goes down and traffic is sent to that router, what happens? How do you route around that outage or that connection being down, right? So today we're going to configure CEO2, which is, excuse me, which is the one that has the connection to the biz internet. The reason we're going to start the configuration on that router first is because that link is how we're going to get up to our controllers, all right? The only way that CEO1 is going to be able to reach the controllers is going to be through CEO2. The MPLS does not have connectivity to the controllers in this particular case. So we're going to start off with CEO2. We'll work through the templates to get him configured for a TLOC extension, and then we'll verify connectivity from CEO1 to the controllers. And if we have enough time, we'll go ahead and onboard that router as well. So let's go ahead, jump over to the manager. So the only thing I've done so far, just for the sake of time, is I've put the basic config on DC1 CEO2, and I've basically just ingested him or got him into manager. So he's got the IP address for the internet to get to the controllers, obviously because he's in here and he's in sync. However, if we go to configuration templates, the only templates that are non-default that we have for device templates is a branch router. We can see that it's only attached to San Jose. And then likewise, if we go to feature templates, the only templates that we have that are non-default are only affiliated with branch sites. So we're going to go ahead and create a handful of templates that are geared towards DC1 CEO2. So let's go ahead and add a template. So again, we're working with 8,000 Vs. I'll just do a quick AAA. Just going to hard code the password just so I know what it is. Okay, we'll save that. We'll scroll down and I'll just change this to local and save the template. Create another template. This time we're going to do system. So for site ID, I'm just going to change this to be all caps. System IP, device specific, also all caps. For the host name, same story. Come on. just hard code the baud rate. That's fine. All right, let's save that. So let's go ahead and add a VPN, or I gotta do a CLI template real quick. I do this because I've been burned so many times where if this command's not on the router and you reboot it, then you're not going to be able to access the command line, which is pretty annoying. So I like to just throw that in there. So let's go ahead and get our VPN 0 template done. So Cisco VPN. VPN 0. So for DNS, I'm going to globally hard code this. And for routes, I'm going to just throw a default route in globally because he needs access to get to the controllers. Okay, perfect. Okay, so that should be it for VPN 0. Let's go ahead and take care of our interfaces now. So we need to, if we go back to the topology, we need to build a template for gig 2 to be able to add that IP address. And we also need to do 2 templates with regards to gig 3. So gig 3 is going to be where we do the TLOC extension over to CEO1. And I only have one link here. So the idea is that we're going to take that link and we're going to carve it into sub interfaces. So we're going to use one sub interface for the Biz Internet TLOC extension to get down to CEO1. And then when we do the configuration on CEO1, we'll want to do a TLOC extension for the MPLS to get up to CEO2. So that would require 2 sub interfaces for those layer 3 routable segments, right? So let's go ahead and build those 3 templates, and then we should be able to test out the theory. So add template. So we're going to add VPN interface Ethernet. O2, and this will be gig 2. So we're going to globally no shut that interface. We're going to globally define the interface as gig 2. For the description, we can just say biz inet, it's fine. For the static, this is going to obviously be something we want to control. So let's go ahead and say gig 2 IP and mask. So this is going to be a tunnel interface. So the color I'm going to globally set as biz internet. Not really worried about the other stuff because the purpose of this is just to do a TLOC extension. Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. Let's go and create the gig3 parent interface template. So basically all we need to do for this one is just enable gig3. So globally, no shut. Interface is going to be gigabit 3. We don't want to assign the IP address here. We want to assign the IP address on the TLOC extension, which is going to be the sub interface. So this should be it for gig3. So let's do one more template, and I think we're in good shape. It's going to be an interface Ethernet again, but this time, so DC1, CEO2, we'll call it gig3. TLOC? Sure, why not? So globally no shut. Global, we'll set this to be gigabit Ethernet 3 dot. I'm just going to use 211. So I just have two arbitrary VLANs that I'm going to use. I'm going to use 111, which will be for in future video for the MPLS extension because MPLS is always connected to gig 1 of the router, so I just chose 111. And then for the internet TLOC, I'm going to use 211 because the internet connects to gig 2. So I'm just using 211. And the subnet is the 11 is the third octet. It probably doesn't make sense to anybody but me, but it's the only way I can keep track of it. So that's the interface we're going to use. Now we want to be able to control that IP address. So I'm going to change the description here to be gig 3.211 before IP masking. So gig 3.211 IP and mask. We scroll down. So for tunnel, this is not a tunnel interface. This is just going to provide the transport over to the other router. So if we scroll down, we want to see here's the one we're looking for, TLOC extension. So we're going to, this is essentially which interface are we trying to extend? All right, so we can call this, call it TLOC extension, which interface? Okay, so let's go ahead and save that. Now, let me just sort by, or filter by DC1. Okay, so we've got our gig 3 and our gig 2. We've got the VPN 0, we got system AAA, TLOC for the TLOC extension, and the CLI. Okay, I think we're good there. So now if we go back to device templates, right? Now we need to take those feature templates and affiliate them with a device template. So let's create a new device template from feature template. $8,000V, it's going to be an SD-WAN edge. And we'll just call this the router name. Because we're really only going to apply it to the single router. And then let's just select the appropriate feature templates that we created. So for system, AAA, scrolling down to VPN 0. So we did gig 2, and we need 2 more, right? So if we come over here, we're going to add 2 more. We need to define the parent, which is that template, and then we need to do the TLOC extension, which was this template. Okay, and then last but not least, let's attach the CLI, and let's create that template. Okay, so now all we need to do is attach that template to a device. So obviously in our case, it's going to be DC1 CEO2. So let's attach that. Now we have the status has an X because obviously we need to fill out the values, right? So let's go ahead and do that. So here is the gig 3.211. So this is the sub interface that's going to connect down to CEO1. So that's going to be, if I can remember what I made it, 16 to 11. Since this is router 2, we'll make it .2. We'll just make it a /24, complete waste of IPs, but it's a lab. Which extent or which interface are we extending, right? So we want to extend gig 2. That's the one. So again, if we go back to the topology, we're trying to extend gig 2 down through a sub interface of gig 3. So we need to tell the router we're extending gig 2. So here we have to be very specific, gigabit Ethernet 2. So the IP address for the gig 2 IP and mask, right? This was obviously already configured on the router to get it connectivity to the controllers, but we need to maintain that connectivity after this push. So that IP address is going to stay at 172.16.11.101/24. The host name obviously is going to stay the same. The system IP, same, and the site ID, just to double check, is going to be site 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and update that. So now we have a green check mark under status, so we should be good to configure. So let me bring over the command line. And let's see if we can't watch this. All right, it was already successful by the time I drug my window over. So let's do a show IP interface brief. So what we can see is obviously that we didn't necessarily change gig 2, that was already kind of there, but we wanted to maintain that IP address. But what we did do is we enabled gig 3, we assigned it a sub interface with 211 as the VLAN, okay? And then obviously the tunnel is there for the connectivity back to the controllers. So that looks good. So in theory, so let's go back to the topology, and this is where we're going to actually validate if what we've done so far is correct. So DC1 CEO1, he's got that direct connection up to O2 on the gig 3, right? So now we need to essentially bring this router we need to onboard him into the SD-WAN fabric so that we can manage him with Manager, right? Now, we wouldn't be able to do that without connectivity through CEO2. So hopefully we've just given him that connectivity, but obviously we need to configure that router with a base config in order to get him to talk to Manager. So let's hop over to that router. So all I've done is convert him to controller mode just to save time. And I already installed the root certificate to his flash. But just so you can see, there's basically no IP addresses. There's no config on this router aside from what I just described. So what we need to do is we need to configure gig 3 as a parent and a sub interface with the other end or an IP address on that 211 VLAN, and then we'll point our default route to the sub interface of CEO2. Because again, any internet bound traffic that's coming from CEO1 needs to route through CEO2. So if we do that and we can ping all of our controllers as well as the internet, we know that we have successfully extended that TLOC and provided the reachability for CEO1. So let's go ahead and verify that. So config-t interface gig 3, no shut, interface gig 3.211. We're going to say encapsulation.1q 211. We're going to say IP address 172.16.211.1 because we're on router 1 and we know that we made CEO2 211.2, right? That's a /24 mask. Shouldn't have to no shut the sub interface, but it's a habit. And then we're going to let's commit that. And before we put the default route, let's just ping 172.16.211.2. Okay, so we can ping the other router, so that's a good sign, but we shouldn't be able to ping anything beyond that because we don't have a default. So let's do a default route. And again, we're going to point our next hop to the other router. So 211.2. Okay, so that's there. Now the true verification is to ping. Let's try to ping the internet. So we can ping the internet, and let's try to ping our controllers. So 51 is manager, 52 is validator, and then 61 is one of the controllers. So it certainly would appear that we have provided connectivity for CEO1 to get to manager. So that is fabulous. So if I take, this is the kind of the bootstrap config that was used for router 2. So I should be able to kind of mock this up to get this one into vManage. So let's try it, right? So this is router 1, site ID 1. So this is what we need to change, right? So obviously gig 3 .2, well, we already have that, right? We just did that, so we don't care about that. The route we don't care about, but we do need to do the tunnel. So let's do tunnel. Let's do tunnel 3, biz inet tunnel, and we'll use 3.211. And then in SD-WAN, we'll do 211 color biz internet We just need to, we're not going to paste in the routes, so hopefully I don't screw this up. So this, that. Let's paste that. And let's grab this. And then we're just going to change the route. 72.16.211.2, right? Let's commit that. Okay, so commit worked, so the configs should be there. He's got the cert already, so the only thing I should need to do is grab a new chassis number from my list and a new token. So let's do that. Configuration, WAN edges. Let's grab the next one. All right, and let's take that whole command and paste that into the router. Okay, cool. So it looks like we're getting there. Let's head back to manager. Awesome. So we can see we can see CEO1 is coming in. Let's refresh. It's gonna go up and down a few times before it stabilizes. Okay, looks like it's up. Let's go to monitor. Devices. Cool. So we can see now, so router 1, right? We can see it's now ingested. It's got TLOC's control. Everything's looking good. Go back to the topology. So now with the configuration and the TLOC extension that we did, we're now providing the connectivity down to CEO1 through CEO2 and out the internet. So again, if there's an outage, right? So as we slowly build this topology out, right? Like anything that sits behind these routers in the data center, if they were destined to go out the MPLS, but the MPLS circuit dropped, that router would then say, oh, I already have an internet connection that's going this way. So we're basically tricking it to think that it's got a directly connected internet connection. But in reality, it's going through CEO2. So in summary, that's a TLOC extension. They're the templates we need to go ahead and accomplish that configuration. So if we go back, to feature templates and we sort by DC1, we can see that we applied, these 7 templates onto CEO2. The most important for this particular concept was the TLOC extension and the parent interface for Gig 3. So again, hopefully this was informative. You got something out of it, and if you want to continue on with me, then I encourage you to watch the rest of the series. But I do thank you for your time and have a great one. Take care.